hotter than average. In most parts of the country, all states and territories probably going to get warmer than average conditions, but there's two areas in particular where that signal is really jumping out quite strongly as being warmer than usual. And the first of those is up in the tropical north. So that's the Cape York up in the north of Queensland, the top end of the Northern Territory, and the Kimberley and WA. Those areas are likely to be a good bit above average for the coming months. And the second area is way down in the far south, the other end of the country. Tasmania, southern Victoria, southern South Australia, also shaking out to be warmer than usual. But talking about warm weather in winter always feels a little bit unusual because we're not looking at summer temperatures, absolutely not. It is still going to be the coldest time of year. We are still going to see some really cold days, frosty days, snowy days. It's just that places that might typically average 10 to 12 degrees might now average 11 to 13 degrees. So it's a little bit warmer than usual, but perhaps warm is not the right word. We've still got cold weather ahead. It is still going to be a winter, just perhaps a touch milder than usual.
Parts of WA, South Australia, New South Wales, Victoria and Tasmania are screaming out for some rain. Are the next 3 months likely to produce much?
Yeah, they certainly are screaming out for some rain on the back of what has been many, many dry months in a row. So if we wind back the clock to summer and then autumn, we had pretty strong signals for dry weather, and that dry weather really did kick in through both of those seasons. And now we have big rainfall deficits for the year. And look, there is a little bit of a shift in that forecast outlook now. We don't have another outlook of extremely dry conditions across southern Australia. So I guess some good news that we don't see a continuation of that very dry signal. Instead, what we're looking at for most of those southern areas you described, in particular those areas which are feeling the brunt of the drought conditions at the moment, is a pretty typical rainfall range to be expected. So some will probably be slightly drier than average, some slightly wetter than average, but that is an increase in wet weather compared to what has been exceptionally dry so far. So what that really means, perhaps an uptick in rain for those drier areas. It's not shaking out to be a very, very wet few months ahead, and I think some places would love a wet few months to help catch up on the rain that they've been missing. But even if we go from dry to standard, that is still a little bit of an increase over the next few months. And that's really the story for those southern areas. Even if we see typical rainfall in the 3 months ahead, that's still going to be more than what we have been seeing.
And it's good to hear some promising news for those people in southern Australia. What about rain expectations through northern Australia over the next 3 months?
Yeah, that's a good question because this time of year is typically, it's the dry months up north. We don't really call it winter up there because it is still warm, but this is the dry season across the northern half of the continent and most of central Australia as well. Over the past 3 to 5 days, we've actually had a lot of rain through many of these central areas, which is very unusual, and it sort of looks like that's not going to be repeated. So we see a pretty typical rainfall track across the northern parts of the country, and at this time of year, that means dry weather. That means 5 to 10 millimetres in a month, which is sort of barely anything for most of those northern regions. So back towards the dry weather after the current rainfall clears up, and that seems to be the story for the next few months.